we're obviously a daughter organisation of SCCAN, set up with a similar ethos and remit. But our origins go back quite a long way. And I guess in every area, every sort of council area, there's maybe an informal network of groups that are working together, sometimes informally. And that was just like it was in Fife. We had maybe once every couple of times a year, a number of us would meet up and we would really just network. It wasn't so formal, but we recognise that to get further and actually maybe deliver more of our aims as lots of groups, we needed to work together in a more collaborative way and formalise that. And obviously SCCAN was had already sort of forged this networking system or way of working, and we were able to adopt that fairly quickly and look to produce a formal constitution with the link to SCCAN, and that was pretty critical. And within a year, with lots of support from SCCAN as well, we were able to raise some money from the lottery for a development worker. That was quite critical, because that worker really enabled us to reach out to a much wider audience, and the network developed quite quickly over a period of 12 months. So groups such as community councils, who maybe weren't even on our radar as a climate action group, so lots of ones which were, you know, maybe just on the periphery, undertaking or had an interest, or maybe had a particular project, they came, they signed up as members. So we grew. I mean, we're not huge. I think at the moment we're about 30, Suzie, 30 odd members, and you know, that it is a continual job to keep growing that network. We also developed an events program which was a bit more ambitious, in that we were looking at 4 events a year, and within that we had an ambition to have this sort of learning and exchange, so themed activities, usually on site, so that it would be visiting a place, learning, and then having the networking within that, ideally with the point of view of having an action at the end of it. So our aims, similar to SCCAN, you see there, the mutual support of a network, as well as sharing a vision of what our communities can do together and individually. Looking really at the barriers that we face as individual communities when we're trying to enact things which maybe require us to talk up to larger organisations, or especially our local authority, Fife. So that was quite an important aspect I'll come on to. And obviously sharing expertise, what good networks are. Networks for us are really, you know, the way forward. We are only small individuals, small groups working on aspects of climate change. We need to work as a network. It's vital, but recognizing that actually it's a lot of work to do that, to set it up, and you do need that. You do need to get to a certain scale. In some ways, you do need that little bit of support, and that's really what SCCAN enabled us to do in the early stages. That bit of a step up, but the work of putting that initial funding bid and having a worker really enables us to get a lot further. Some of the networking events, I'll just list a few here. So say 4 a year, trying to get them to be in the place. Now Fife's a big area. It's quite challenging to find a time, to find a venue that everyone can get to, that's not going to eat into their day too much. So we varied them a lot. Some evening meetings, some lunchtime, some even weekend, and they were spread across Fife, so that we tried to enable people to meet up at different places. And the themes, yeah, they varied. So during the summer, we tried to do a lot of the the outdoor things, taking the gardens, the wonderful community growing projects, travel projects, and then during the winter, maybe more sort of internal, inside stuff, workshops. Um, Plastic pollution was something we ran in St Andrews last year, because there was quite an interesting project running there at the time on tackling plastic waste. So, trying to ride on the tailcoats of what good projects are going on, and showcasing that across Fife was really good. And then, as I said, each networking event, there was a sort of a networking time, but also a kind of workshop that enabled us to try to develop shared issues under that theme. So we would always try to generate problems and solutions at those workshops that we could then take forward to a higher level. So, the network has a problem here, there's a number of groups that have identified this as an issue for them, and then we would look to a solution as a network, and that representation at a high level was very important. Moving, this year, as you know, it's COVID. We've had to move a lot of things online, so there's been benefits of that. We've actually had larger attendance at the couple of events that we've done, better engagement from the council. So they've actually come along. We had a meadow management looking at Fife's proposals to increase the amount of grass that can move over to meadow management, reducing the need for cutting. So really important, really interesting work. And we were able to get an expert from down south who's been working on this for years to really sell it. And we probably wouldn't have done that if we weren't doing an online event. Next week, we've got one on online gardening workshop, which, again, rethinking how to do these things. And I'm sure we'll get people coming from all over. So that higher level thinking, trying to ask a question of our local authority or other large organisations, an important part of the network. So we obviously engage with them, and it is reciprocal. They're looking to a network, to us as a network, to enable them to undertake certain consultations and work, and we're able to feed back. So things like the Climate Fife and what's called SCCAN. That was important for our network to be involved with, and we're able to feed up. We have representation on the community planning partnership, which enables us to hopefully solve problems in a partnership way. And I think that has grown over the years, and it does require a lot of work, but it is beneficial. Just this last year, we also formed a community interest company, and that's as Suzie will come on to, part of that was in response to the work under the Climate Action Fund programme. But also we recognise that if we wanted to sort of really take on more not risky projects, but income generating, or look at other avenues that we could support the network's development, then we needed to have a legal framework and structure that was going to prevent risk coming down to our members and our steering group. So that one of those might be on community renewables, but there are other things that we're looking at as well. So looking ahead, we've got ambitions to grow the network. We recognise we've got maybe a hole or a gap in certain areas of Fife, particularly to the west. So we're really wanting to support groups in the west of Fife through this CAF programme, and hopefully encourage more of them to be part of the network. Looking at the low carbon hub that climate the CCF program are trying to roll out, which would be beneficial to have in Fife as a wider, quite a large area. And really, yeah, the biggest opportunity is to try and support the this Climate Action Fund program, and look at how we can take some of these ideas and grow them and development in the future. So that's me, and that's FCAN. So I'm going to hand over now to Suzie and stop sharing my screen, if that's okay. So Suzie, is that all right?
Brilliant. Thanks, Ali. And I'm now going to try and share my screen. This is always the slightly scary bit, isn't it? With sound and share. So hopefully you can see a title slide there. Someone shout if you can't. So my name's Suzie Good. I work for Greener Kirkcaldy, which is a community-led charity and development trust working locally, excuse me, working locally to tackle the climate emergency, fuel poverty, food insecurity, and bring people together. We've been going since 2009, and we now have around 24 staff and about 80 regular volunteers. Much of our work is delivered in Kirkcaldy, but we also work in partnership across Fife. So I'm going to tell you more about the Climate Action Fife project, and I'm going to start with a short video. We're here to tell you about an exciting new project called Climate Action Fife. It's bringing together individuals, communities, local government and businesses to tackle the climate emergency and make Fife a greener and fairer place to live. Let's hear from some Fifers about what they're doing for Climate Action Fife.
We're taking action by supporting our local community to tackle climate change in their own way.
We're taking action by teaching our community how to grow their own food, by reducing food miles and providing skills to local people.
I'm taking action against climate change by fixing up old bikes to sell at affordable costs so people can reduce their car use.
I'm taking action by planting trees in my local community and sharing skills and knowledge so that people can plant their own woodlands.
I'm taking action by processing locally grown food, like taking these apples and converting them into apple juice for the benefit of a community.
I'm taking action by cycling to work, cycling to the shops and encouraging others to cycle too.
I'm taking action by encouraging family and friends to embrace a staycation and enjoy all the culture and scenery that we have here locally.
I'm taking action by making climate-friendly choices at home, such as driving an electric car to lower emissions and reduce pollution.
We are taking action by bringing people together to learn to grow food and share their experience with others.
I'm taking action by encouraging people to shop plastic-free and make more conscious decisions on their lifestyle.
We're taking action by raising awareness about plastic pollution and by encouraging the people of Dunfermline to shop at local businesses like Bankhead Farm Shop.
We are taking action by helping to get more solar panels installed on public buildings, promoting renewable energy and giving energy advice.
Fife Council is taking action on climate change by committing to be carbon neutral by 2045 and working with the community that it serves towards that end.
We're all taking action. Why not join us?
Oh, brilliant video. Well done. And I love the continuity of passing the banner along. That was so good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So that video really was just part of the launch. We couldn't have a in-person launch with lots of people for the project. So we produced a video instead. And hopefully any Fifers who are with us today will recognise some familiar faces there. The idea was to kind of illustrate the cross-sectoral nature of the project. So the Climate Action Fife project it's very much a partnership, and it's a partnership between the key partners are Greener Kirkcaldy, who are leading the project, Fife Council, Fife College, and Fife Communities Climate Action Network. That's our regional network that Ali was talking about. The Climate Action Fife project is working on 10 activities to tackle the climate emergency. It's funded by the National Lottery Community Fund's new Climate Action Fund, and was actually the first project in Scotland to be funded by this fund last year. I think there's now a project in Glasgow as well, but there's only a couple in Scotland. The project started in October and will run until March 2022. It's a Fife-wide cross-sector project that brings together individuals, communities, the local public sector, and also local businesses. It's very much a development project, and our aim is to pilot a range of activities, build capacity in communities across Fife, and develop ambitious longer-term plans. So we've designed the project around 4 themes: engage, pilot, develop, and build. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those just now. So starting with the engage activities, our plan is to produce a climate change toolkit and resource library with guidance for people from different sectors on how to communicate climate change, and resources that anyone can use them to plan and run awareness events with their own audiences. And that will be supported by training on communicating climate change. We want to make it easy for people to get everything they need to raise awareness and spread the word about the climate emergency, and also how we can tackle it, all kind of on a sort of one-stop shop basis. We're also trialling the toolkit and resources with a huge range of events for different audiences across Fife: talks, practical workshops, film nights, climate conversations, family events, interactive lessons for schools, walks, cooking demonstrations, hopefully something for everybody. We're also creating a Fife Climate Literacy course, which is going to be accredited by the Climate Literacy Project, which is a UK-wide project all about developing climate literacy, just giving people the confidence to talk about climate change. So our course is going to be a Fife-specific training course on the science behind climate emergency, along with local information, local context, and local actions that we can take to tackle it. It'll be very action-oriented and help people move from theory to practice. There's going to be a version for public sector organisations, one for community groups, a course for the public, and we're also looking at a course for young people as well. The pilot activities are in four main areas. We're working with small and medium-sized businesses, community groups, community buildings, and third sector organisations to help them look at their energy use and waste, especially food waste. And we're also exploring the idea of a Fife Climate Friendly Business Awards or accreditation scheme to see if we can use that to help kind of promote and normalise good practice. Climate Friendly Homes and Gardens, we're offering home energy advice to help people make their homes more efficient, change how they use their energy, and consider home renewables to reduce their carbon footprint. We're also going to give people tips and advice to make their gardens more climate friendly and climate ready as well. So, excuse me, thinking about adaptation as well as mitigating climate change. And we'll be doing that through a programme of gardening workshops. We're also running a programme of workshops to help households learn cooking skills so that they can reduce their food waste, choose local seasonal food, and reduce meat and dairy. Fife College students are going to be taking part in a competition, which we're kind of working title is Chefs of the Future, and they're going to be developing climate friendly plant-based menus and cooking them for the judges. We're also going to be working with the college's tourism students, and they're going to plan a programme of talks, workshops and events encouraging alternatives to domestic and international air travel. We want to show people options to change the way they travel and promote the amazing opportunities for staycations in Fife and across Scotland and the UK. The develop activities are a bit more ambitious. They're the start of bigger, longer term pieces of work. We're developing a community tree planting strategy along with guidance and a training package to identify areas suitable for tree planting in Fife, set targets for community tree planting and support communities to understand and plant the right trees in the right place. One of the challenges that our community group members of the Fife Network have told us over the years is that people, volunteers, local community groups are really keen to plant trees, but sometimes it can be quite difficult to know what to do, how to do it, and also to sort of navigate getting permission from landowners and working with the the local authority as well. So we're going to trial this guidance on 3 communities across Fife as well as part of the pilot project. The Community Cycling Manifesto sounds quite bold. We're going to be carrying out a community-led study to identify gaps, opportunities and priorities, looking really specifically at commuting by bicycle in Fife, and we'll use that to create our manifesto. Part of that will be about reporting back to our partners, Fife Council, about what's needed in terms of infrastructure and policy, but we're also going to be looking to design future community-led cycling activities to support people in Fife to cycle more. And then the third area of develop activity is we're going to be researching the technical and financial feasibility of a new Fife community renewable energy project. We're learning from the successful Edinburgh Solar Co-op project to see if there's potential for a similar project in Fife. The build elements of the project cut across the whole thing and are all about developing capacity in Fife. We already have a really strong community environmental sector, and we want to support that and also encourage more community groups to get involved. We've started up an informal monthly forum for Fife-based groups to share their experience and learning. We've brought 3 of the smaller community groups, Clear, Buckhaven and Methil, Eats, Rosyth and Tayport Plant. We've brought them in as paid partners in the project, developing some of the activities, sharing their learning and producing resources for other use. Those were all community groups who in their own rights probably weren't big enough to apply for this particular pot of grant funding, but by bringing them into the partnership, we've involved them and hopefully are growing their capacity to engage their communities on climate change. We're also running a new small grant scheme open to any community group in Fife wanting to trial climate change engagement in their community, and that's open at the moment with grants up to £500 per group. We're starting a Fife Young People's Climate Change group who will design innovative and unique activities engaged with their peers in the university, the college, schools, youth groups and clubs. And we're also looking at the geographic gaps. Ali mentioned that the Fife Network has fewer members in West Fife. So we're really keen to look at that and look at those places in Fife where there hasn't been that much community climate change activity so far. And we'll offer support to people and groups in those areas to help them take action. So a little bit of a step back now to think about the history of kind of how did we get here with this lottery project? And it's fair to say the project has actually been years in the making. We've been thinking about it long before the lottery, been thinking about this fund. Ali talked about the development of the Fife Network, so I'm going to focus a little bit more on our partnership and particularly the partnership with Fife Council. I often hear community groups say that it's difficult to work with their local council. They sometimes don't know who to speak to, or different departments within the council say different things, and sometimes key people's job roles change. When we first spoke to our local authority about some of these issues years ago, it turned out that actually our local authority felt the same about the community sector. They said things like community groups appear to come and go. I guess that depends on capacity and funding. The council officers don't have the time to speak to 20 or 30 different community groups across the region. And there's geographic gaps. There's not a group in it in every area. So it might be seen as unfairly favouring some places. Our regional network doesn't fully solve all of those issues, but it does give us a shared vision and voice and a clear point of contact. And I found that that's actually been a real breakthrough for us in how we work with our local authority, was giving them that single point of contact and a shared voice to represent our diverse community groups. We took part in a research report for Scottish Communities Climate Action Network in, I think, 2014, which was all about community groups working with their local authorities. And I'll find the link to that research output and put that in the chat, because that was actually a really important starting point for us to identify some of this learning. Another breakthrough for us in Fife was the development of the Cosy Kingdom partnership. So you saw one of the Cosy Kingdom energy advisors in the video. Back in 2013, St Andrews Environmental Network and Greener Kirkcaldy teamed up. They were both at that point running energy advice projects in their own towns, and both asking the local authority why we couldn't work more closely with them. And the answer was really clear. It was because we didn't cover the whole of Fife. So we teamed up to scale up. The two organisations formed a consortium to scale up our work and provide a consistent service across the whole of Fife. It felt like a really big, bold step for us at that point, but it paid off big time and led to a really close partnership working with the council and also the wider voluntary sector and the local housing associations. And it also led to long-term funding for the service. So a good result for the organisations, but more importantly for the climate and for anyone in Fife who is experiencing fuel poverty. Our project Climate Action Fife is funded by the Lottery's Climate Action Fund. That fund was launched in late 2019. They put out a call for expressions of interest. We expressed an interest. We put together a 2-page document for the lottery initially, and it turned out we were one of 600 partnerships who expressed their interest in this fund. So we didn't really expect it to go anywhere. We were absolutely delighted to be one of, I think, about 40 groups to be invited to put in a full application, and then one of 15 groups who were funded by the fund. So it was a huge amount of work. I'm not going to deny that. There was a lot of development work in putting together the full project proposal. And it was a very, very competitive fund. So I think it's really worth managing expectations about this fund. I think any funder who is operating UK-wide is especially competitive for groups from Scotland. But other funders are available. The fact that the project we're talking about today is funded by the lottery is almost irrelevant, because there are lots and lots of other funders out there. But I'm happy to answer any questions about the specifics of the Climate Action Fund. Where are we at with it? So the project started in October. We're now 6 months into the development project, which is going to be running for 18 months. It's going to be full-on delivery over the spring and summer this year, and then probably in around October we'll be developing our follow-on application to the lottery for a bigger, longer-term project. We're identifying our learning as we go. We're calling this an action learning approach. We're going to be sharing a lot of learning as much as we can, and also using it to develop our follow-on application. The lottery are also extremely keen on something that they're calling movement building, and that's really just about sharing learning across the sector and making sure that we're encouraging other groups to get involved in climate action, in particular groups who don't have an environmental remit at the moment. So we're going to be really involved in that as well. And we'd love you to get involved as well. So we're going to be sharing our learning on the project website, climateactionfife.org.uk, on the Fife Network website, which is fcan.wordpress.com. Please look for it on Twitter as well. We've set up a hashtag #ClimateActionFife, and you can also follow each of the project partners on Twitter as well. Anybody who's here today from Fife, please do get in touch. If we're not already working with you, we would love to do so. And for everybody else, we will definitely stay in touch through the Scottish Communities Climate Action Network, and hopefully we'd love to share our learning again towards the end of the development project. So I'm happy to answer any questions now, and I think Ali is as well. But I'll stop sharing my screen now.